Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat, and with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
I am perceiving the creation with renewed conviction, deliberating over whether I'd been taught a misnomer of lies, the likes of which had formerly entrenched me in belief that we as humanity inhabit a spherical earth, comparable to every globe sitting atop a teacher's desk. As inheritors of the grand matrix, we are indoctrinated as children into speculative assumptions I've only recently learned were based upon a carefully crafted web of deceit so all-consuming, our postulation of where we are, truly unwarranted. Awakening makes one question everything thought relevant, all that one had once so innocently accepted in assurance as evidentiary truth. All must be reassessed upon the certainty that there is no absolute truth, especially when one evaluates the preponderance of lies emblazoned onto our unquestioned resolve as clean child mind slate. And so once again I find myself in that zone of nihilistic persuasion, reality shattered and manifest knowing shaken to core, deliberating over what I thought seminal truth, the mother of all conspiracies, challenging one's conviction of who and where we thought we were as people. Our most foundational belief, underlying structure to life upon a blue marble with angelic sun as its vibrant diamond center. Science informs us that planetary accretion happens when primordially ejected bodies are spit out from the core of stars, and that the Earth began as cosmological debris, which gravitationally attracting enough mass assumed orbit as planet around sun, which also spinning counterclockwise in similarly rotating planetary system is itself contained in orbit around some grand universal center. A theoretical black hole, they assert in presumption of such immense pull, even light cannot escape its destroying grasp. Have we all been held hostage to some secret societal Freemasonic accord, a deception so colossal, so pervasive, that only those in the know understand our collective situation? Do the global elite celebrate the achievement of planetary domination by flaunting insider privilege, hoisting flag over and in front of the United Nations building as throne of New World Order, which depicts the flat earth as it really is, holding all nations in singular, circular embrace? Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Studio B at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and I thank those of you that are with me live and have access to the chat room, I appreciate your fellowship and for taking the time to listen to not only myself, but all the various hosts that come to you 24/7 on both Studios A and Studio B. We appreciate your patronage. And also, I would like to add that um, people, um, that we would really appreciate the donations that any of you could share, that the networks has been having a hard time sustaining itself and in reaching its goals of being self-sufficient. And so those of you that can, please do, even for the price of a meal, once a week or once a month, that supporting the network goes a long way in allowing us to continue to come to you in the manner that we do and utilizing the network as a platform of truth to cover many different controversial um, and really intriguing subjects, because there's so many new things coming to light. And even when you think you've had really, I mean, what else can you cover in the realm of conspiracy? And there always seems to be some kind of strange subject that comes to light, which just intrigues the interest of world. And so we're trying to stay on the forefront and bring to you all of those current events and topics. And speaking of which, this evening I'm going to be covering one of those that has been on the forefront of the consciousness of not only the people here on this network, but from around the world, that for whatever reason, um, it's like one of those 100 monkey things. You have all of a sudden a topic that pops up and everybody on YouTube begins studying it, or on on the different alternative media websites, the different hosts, broadcasters of different truth platforms worldwide, that there's always something that comes up that just grasps and becomes the predominant focus of that arena of investigation and research. And as you can tell by the topic, the poem that I wrote and read at the very beginning of the show, that I'm going to be talking about one of those. And this is something that I know is very controversial, and it is also something that not a lot of people are willing to give any serious time or effort to really look into. And admittedly, I was exactly in that place. Many of you understand and know about the evolution of this topic for myself, that I was really hesitant in even giving of any of my time to looking at it in any serious way. But because I have covered and written about many different controversial topics prior, my friends and my listeners, they came at me basically with the whole, um, you have asked us to be open-minded in regards to other controversial topics that you talk about, and you have been unjudging in going into the study of those topics, and you've tried to present the information without any bias or any favoritism, and have covered it from all angles, and presenting all of that information in its most complete and detailed manner that I could. I've given each of you a chance to look into and study whatever it is that I wanted to cover, will focus and talk about, like the whole thing with Cain being a child of the devil, and there being two bloodlines and seed lines on this planet, and that the enmity which what happened between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, that it goes back further than just the Genesis 6 incursion of the Watchers mating with the daughters of Cain and creating a race of giants, that it actually goes back to the garden. And so many, for whatever reason, have found that topic of such controversy that they were unwilling to investigate it. And I was condemned critically by many people for even suggesting and for writing a book about this as topic. And so this that I'm covering this evening, in talking about the book of Enoch and the connections of the flat earth to as being a key to decrypt it, I ran into the same kind of animosity, the same kind of hesitation, the same kind of judgmental bias from mainstream Christians and just people as a whole. And I don't really understand it. Okay, I understand, yes, that this topic seems to have been settled by the greatest scientific minds 500 years in the past, and that as a perspective, as a model for worldview, most scientists and even all the educational system and the world, that we have bought into it without question. And in actually looking into it and investigating in somewhat, there are things which do not make sense and which cannot be answered by our accepted belief systems. The whole heliocentric model of who we are and where we are as world. And so opening myself to the possibility that there is substance to the debate, I decided to go into it with an open mind and to spend a couple days with just looking at the information and actually listening to the videos that people were sending me and really hearing the information. And what I discovered was that there was indeed good cause and very relevant points to be made, which people should question themselves as to why they believe the way that they do. And having done so, and I'll bring up some of those things, but the main focus of what I will be speaking about this evening is how discernment of the earth as being a plane, how it led me to be able to understand the book of Enoch in a way that has not been, understood in over 500 years. And that when I actually came to knowledge on this decipherment of this decryption, I knew that I had to begin a book. Yeah, I will at some point, Olive. But I knew I had to begin a book immediately which presented this revelation to people, because it was something that was not understood, and it was also something that was on the forefront of the consciousness of world, and it also was something that helped people to understand what Enoch was writing about, what he was talking about, when when nobody else prior could make any sense of it. And there's information, certainly books that have been written and many authors that have quoted from the book of Enoch, but all of those quotations have been from the portion on the description of the movements of the moon. And so there were no books written and no web pages, websites, or authors that had written or could make sense of, or that could present in any meaningful way the material which Enoch was citing, the many chapters that he wrote about the motions of the sun. And it's because we don't open ourselves to this other worldview. And when I did, I was able to make sense of it. And so, before bringing up that information, I just want to talk about a few things as to why I think there is relevance to this particular topic as an area of research, and why I have been, for the past few months, working tirelessly, day and night, really, on getting this book done and presenting it to the public. It's the fastest book I ever wrote. I found it so intriguing that, as I said, I've been focused on it nonstop for several months now. I think it was in June that I was first even introduced to this information. And I know that there's many of you that are listening right now that are just rolling your eyes, and that are thinking, why would I even bother listening to this person? Why would I even want to finish um, listening to this show? And there were many people that asked me too when I first began to study it. Um, Many people asked me, why is it relevant? Why should anybody spend any time studying and looking into the debate of whether the Earth is a plane or a globe? And I'll answer that at the end of the show, because there's a lot of points that really need to be brought up first. But when you start to look into and you start to investigate whether the Earth is a plane or whether it is a globe, there's a few things that immediately come to mind. Uh, some of those have to do with the phases of the moon, with the seasons and the way that they work, and the differentiation between the time and day, night and day, the hours of night and day and their alignment, um, and also with our parallax of the different constellations and the different stars over the course of night. And what I'm talking about specifically, and this was one of the things that stood out to me immediately, was um, if you consider the Earth in motion, in orbit around the sun, we're told that the Earth spins once a day, and that this creates our 24-hour day, and that it takes the Earth 365 years to move annually around the sun in full circular rotation, and that the Earth is spinning towards the east like a top, and that we move counter clockwise around the sun. And so think about this, visualize it, picture it in your mind. When, like, even today, you take today and you break the hours in the day, and then you consider in 3 months we're supposed to be 90 degrees to the right, have moved 90 degrees to the right, and then in 6 months we will be exactly opposite the sun, uh, in opposition to where we are now, completely across on the other side, and then in another 3 months we're another 90 degrees and we should be left of where we are now, and then in another 3 months we complete the rotation, return to where we are now. Now think about this. If in 6 months, if we're on the completely other side of the sun, shouldn't night and day completely flip-flop? Now, even considering our spinning, once every 24 hours, if we're on the complete other side of the Earth, then the other side of the other side of the sun, then the side which had been facing the sun would be facing out into space. And the portion which was in the shadow, in the darkness of night, should be facing the sun. And so day and night should flip-flop, so that what the 12 hours that basically comprise the day, in like right now, in 6 months, those 12 hours should be flip-flopped and they should comprise night. And same thing in every 3 months, the hours of day and night should diverge from what they are right now, and they should be 6 hours off. And so if you think about when night and day happen, there's no deviation, no great deviation to the alignment of day and night, other than there being 1 hour of daylight savings time twice a month. And that basically the day and the night stay as they are aligned right now throughout the entirety of the year. And so how is that possible if we're on a planet which is spinning around the sun as the center, and the star, the diamond center of the solar system? How is that possible? And then also consider this. If the moon is in rotation around the earth, as the earth is in rotation around the sun, how do the phases of the moon stay constant and stay in perfect synchronicity throughout the year, so that there's 4 phases, quarterly phases, and it cycles through first quarter, full moon, third quarter, and then back to lunar conjunction, and begins the whole process again every month. If the moon is in orbit around the earth at the same time that the earth is in orbit around the sun, how is it at all possible that the phases would remain constant? They couldn't. They absolutely couldn't. There would be such deviation that even from month to month, the phases of the moon would not remain the same. The same thing goes for, and of course, if you want to put, some questions in the chat room, I will address them. But the same thing goes for our parallax and our being able to see certain constellations and certain stars through the night. That the zodiac, the constellations as laid out by the 12 houses of the zodiac, they spin once every night around Polaris as the fixed star, as the center of our firmament. And even though that the houses of the zodiac shift so that a particular house is aligned with the rising of the sun on a particular day and a particular month, they still remain constant throughout the entirety of the year. And so whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, you will see the same constellations, the same stars during the course of night, and they will move in circle around the fixed star Polaris. And this has remained constant for so many thousands of years that that navigators during the night, they are able to use that alignment with Polaris in order to ascertain direction during the course of night and remain en route until the sun rises in the morning. And so these 3 things could not happen. I mean, just these 3 things right here could not happen if we were on a planet, if we were on a ball-like, a spherical planet, which was spinning like a top and moving around the sun. Now consider this also. If you've never heard of the phenomena of the midnight sun, the midnight sun is something, it's a phenomena which occurs during the summer solstice when the sun is aligned directly above the Tropic of Cancer. And when it is above the Tropic of Cancer for this particular part of the year, there's a time when, at very extreme northern latitudes, when eyewitnesses, observers on the ground, are able to watch the sun cycle through its full circuit, going from east to west to north and back to the east. It will remain steady in its full circuit and remain above the horizon, never having dipped below it. And it will remain visible in such way over the course of many days. And according to the heliocentric worldview, and our being on a planet that's spinning, this would not be possible. And the fact that it is verifies that there's something very wrong with our believing that we are living on a globular Earth. And this is something also that is not, it doesn't play out in the same way during the course of the winter solstice, which is summer for southern latitudes. And I'll speak about those differences when I return back from the first break. And then I'll spend at least this next 30 minutes establishing some other points to just give you something to think about in regards to curvature and the horizon being flat. Water, the characteristics and the physics and nature of water is to always find a flat level, and and different things like that, like curvature as far as the building of railroads and canals and bridges, that the engineers which draw up the blueprints and make the decisions to build these huge structures over thousands of miles, they never take into consideration the curvature of the Earth. All right, be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Before we went to break, I was talking about three things about how engineers, those that draw up blueprints, that build huge infrastructures like bridges, canals, railroads over thousands of miles. If you ask them whether they give any consideration to the curvature of the earth in building all of any of that, they will tell you that they do not. And if you don't know how the mathematical formula for how they, oh, I apologize. I forgot to unmute it. All right. So, anyways, my bad. And so I was talking about the just the way that railroads and the bridges and different infrastructure, the way that they are built, the engineers take no consideration as to there being any particular curvature. And the way that they create and build these structures is they try to keep it as perfectly level and as flat as they can over this thousands of miles that the railroads are laid out. And so, if you ask them whether they give any consideration to there being any curvature to the earth, they do not. And if there were curvature, then it would be unsafe as far as the way that like for instance, if you were building a bridge and crossing over the equator, and with the sun being white, I mean the earth being whitest near the equator, there would be this huge kind of arch, this huge kind of hump in the middle of where the equator would, the circumference, the diameter of the earth, that there should be this kind of bulge there according to the spherical shape of the Earth. And another thing, as far as curvature, when you watch, um, like for instance, lighthouses and the Statue of Liberty or the skyline of a particular city, that you're able to see it and witness it over 10, 20, 30 miles even, and even further. But according to the way that curvature is um, is measured, this these things should not be visible in the way that we're able to see them, especially now that we have these high-powered cameras and telescopes. The curvature should be such that these particular structures should be below our line of sight. But yet, that is not the case. Lighthouses, um, the Statue of Liberty, Manhattan skyline, the city of Chicago across the Michigan, the Lake Michigan, that you can see these things at great distances. And another thing in regards to curvature, when you're looking out at a cityscape, if the Earth is rounded and it dips below, extending out um, certain distance, it should dip below the horizon. You should not be able to see all the way out as far as the naked eye can perceive. It should not be flat. There should be curvature, and the buildings should be leaning away, laying at an angle away from the viewer. But, again, this is not the case. All the buildings are straight up and down. And when you see them, like if you use, like if you go to the top of the Empire State Building, or you go to a part of the end of this bridge, and they have those telescopes or those viewers that you can pay a quarter and look out across great distances. Everything remains flat all the way to the horizon, and that whenever you climb up and climb a mountain, even the highest mountain, the top of Mount Everest, when you look out in every direction, uh, all the way around you, the horizon remains flat in all directions. And this is something that should not be visible should there be any kind of curvature to the Earth. Um, Now, another thing in regard to the rotation of the Earth and the speed of the rotation of the Earth, um, science claims that basically at the equator, the Earth is spinning at 1,037.6. Well, let me read it exactly. That that the Earth is spinning at a rate of 1,037.541,666,666,667 miles per hour. And the way that you can find that is by dividing the circumference of the Earth, which is said to be 24,901 miles, by the number of hours in a day. So if you take 24,901 and you divide it by 24, and you convert this orbital speed, this so-called speed of the Earth as it spins around the sun, that you get 18.5 miles a second, or 30 kilometers a second. And when you multiply that 18.5 by 60 for every 60 minutes, and then for 60 minutes of every hour, you get a speed of 66,600 miles an hour, is what they say that the Earth is spinning at this astronomical speed. And notice also that in citing all of these different numbers, you have all of these 666 numbers um, that are, basically the heliocentric worldview, the calculations of the the orbital spin of the Earth, there's all these 666 numbers involved in the calculation and the determination of that motion, which is, a lot of people would say that this is coincidental. I am not one of those. I don't in any way believe that these numbers being built into the calculations of the Earth as being a globe, that that this is in any way coincidental. And just to give further verification of that is if you take the inclination and subtract it from the 90 degree, if the Earth were perfect straight up and down 90 degree, you get 90 degrees minus the 23.4 for the inclination of the Earth. And guess what? You get 66.6 degrees. And so all of these 66 numbers are compounded into the calculation of the motion of the Earth as well as its velocity. And do I think this is coincidental? Absolutely not. And so, anyways, the science also says that we're 93 million miles away from the sun, but and I can't post them in the chat room right now, but there's many photos, and I have all of these in my book. And just so you know, my book is almost 400 pages. It's 392 pages. It's 32 chapters, and it covers in great detail all of the things that I'm speaking about now, as well as, I had mentioned at the very beginning that the flat Earth is the key for decrypting the Book of Enoch, and that there's a particular portion of the Book of Enoch called the Book on the Courses of the Heavenly Luminaries, which first read the Book of Enoch when I was 18 years old, and I found it fascinating, especially since it contains so much information about the fallen angels and the birth of giants upon this planet, which so many of you know that whole story and topic intrigues me, and that many of my other books have been written with that as a focus. However, every time I had read the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries, I did not understand it. And so for the longest time, whenever I read the Book of Enoch and I would come to this portion of the text, I would basically skip over it and pick up where it ended. And the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries in the Book of Enoch is it's from chapter 71 to chapter 83. So it's like 14 chapters. And as I said, I was not able to grasp or make any kind of sense of it prior to my investigation of the model and of the Earth. And once I understood that that there was possibility that the Earth was not a globe and that it was a flat circular plane, as it mentions in Isaiah in the Bible, in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 22, where it speaks about the Most High sitting on top of the circle of the earth, and that the heavens were spread as a curtain above it. When I applied this particular worldview to the detail of the motions of the sun and the moon as described in the Book of Enoch, then I was able to make sense of it. And this is also related to your question, Olive. And so I'll elaborate on that here in just a minute. But before I do so, I want to just bring up a couple other things. I know that there are many that listen to Revolution Radio and listen to this show that do not give any kind of authority to the Bible, and it's understandable. I personally, when I was young, I completely turned my back to Christianity and to the gospel and to anything that was contained therein. Like many of you, I believe that it was fabricated and that the texts were created by uh, a group of illuminists or those that wanted to exercise authority and get the people to conform to a certain way, accepted way of being. And for the longest time, for 20 years of my life, as I was studying all this New Age material and I was involved in Native American shamanism and doing sweat lodges and vision quests and things of that nature, I, totally did not look into or read any of the texts. And it wasn't until I was brought full circle back to them that I understood that there were many strange, um, strange esoteric secrets contained within the gospel, which enabled me to understand things such as the fallen angels, the ancient aliens. Um, that once I started to understand and to look deeper into these secrets, I discovered that the gospel was 100% prophetic, and that the things that were contained within the scriptures and the chapters that they had for that the Most High or whoever at the time, I didn't know, whoever had written or inspired the prophets to write what they wrote, that they were able to prophesy about events and circumstances, historical circumstances, which happened thousands of years in advance of their occurring. And this in itself intrigued me. And then once I discovered that, there was a whole other biblical code encoded within the chapters and within the script, and that these things had been thousands of years in advance of our, um, the creation of computers and the ability to utilize software and programs to seek out and to search out these particular Bible codes. Well, that in itself, those two things affirmed to me that there was authority, there was some kind of divinely inspired nature to the text. And so when I really began to read and study it, which I had not prior, and when I was 24 years old and I first came across the account of the Genesis 6 sons of God mating with the daughters of man, I really started and made a commitment to read the entirety of the King James Version at that time. And when I did so, I discovered that there were many intriguing subjects and topics contained within it that has since that time occupied my time and um, has held my focus. And I believed since then that it was that the scriptures were worthy of investigation and worthy of study. And that's what I've been doing since then. And so ever since then, also, I kept having different things, different revelations present themselves to me, which were not spoken about and which were not covered by other people. And in, such as the revelation of Cain being a child of the devil. And at every turn of the way, I have learned things which have just completely turned my world upside down. And this was one of those things. So I'll get into some specifics on how it is that this particular revelation relates to the book of Enoch and how it helped me to understand it in a way that had not, that it could not be understood prior. And specific to that, I'm going to mention, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour, and I appreciate you hanging in there with me on this because I know how so many are just absolutely adamant against even investigating it, and that a lot of my listeners, when I first started doing shows where I was talking about some of this information, how I was ridiculed by a lot of them. And, a lot were concerned that I would lose credibility um, for even investigating it as possibility. And so, anyways, I think there's very good reason, as I said, and I've been making um, some of those reasons. I've been speaking about that over the course of the first hour, but I'm gonna lay out a few more things, and then I'm gonna go into some particular scriptural topics. And I know that, again, that a lot don't read the Bible, don't study it, and so I won't come at you hard from that particular angle. But I'm gonna, also appeal to your sense of your own reason and your what you see yourself here, being on this particular planet, what you can observe directly, what you have experienced, and then I'll talk in the final portion about how this ties into the Book of Enoch. Also, I wanted to make an announcement that Carolyn Hamlet will be joining me next week, and then the following Wednesday, Rob Skiba will be joining me. Those of you that have covered and listened to this particular topic that I'm speaking about this evening, he decided to go down the rabbit hole and has also been looking into this particular issue as well. And, all of us are at least finding it intriguing, to say the least. But in regards to the rotation of the earth and the curvature, um, when it's like a hot air balloon or getting in a plane, all of us have done that when we get in a plane and we fly north, south, east, or west, that if you fly 500 miles to the east or 500 to the miles to the west or north or south, that you end up about that far away from the point of origin, the place that you departed from, which according to the speed, the velocity, the rotational speed of the Earth, we are moving near the equator at 1,037 or about 38 miles an hour towards the east, and that this is the spin of the Earth that it has to spin at this speed in order to complete one full rotation, one 24-hour full circle, and that it does this 365 times as it goes completely around the earth. Now, considering that speed, if you were in a plane and you were flying towards the east, you should actually lose ground because commercial airlines, uh, commercial planes, airline aircraft, they average about 500 miles an hour. And so, and if you were flying to the north or to the south, the Earth rotating towards the east, your destination should also rotate in that direction, and pilots should have to fly either if you're going north towards the northeast, if you're going south towards the southeast, in order to get to destination. And if you were flying west, that the rotation of the Earth should actually bring the your destination closer to you, so that you get there quicker. And it's the same kind of thing for um, when you shoot off a cannon. And I know that there's speculation. There's scientists out there. They have this, the a whole theory of the Coriolis effect, and they cite that because of the rotation of the Earth, that bullets will move towards the east, or when you shoot um, artillery towards the north or the south, that it will deviate according to the rotation of the Earth. But when what you actually find is that the Earth is stationary and unmoving, and that if you shoot a cannon north, south, east, or west, that it will go about the same distance before coming to a stop. And that when you are aiming, unless the object is moving, but if it's stationary and unmoving, then you don't aim with this particular rotational speed in mind. There's no deviation. You aim straight for the target and you try to hit it according to this particular line of sight. And it doesn't matter if you, like, if the Earth is rotating and you shoot towards the north, the target should move towards the east and throw off your calculations by that particular deviation. And according to, because science also says that the speed of the rotation is only 138 miles an hour at the equator, and as you move up in latitude or down in latitude, that because of the curvature being different, that the rotational speed is also different, and that if you were to come to the North Pole, that there would be almost no rotational speed. And that they have to, I mean, this is, if according to the Earth, the heliocentric model of the Earth, that this is how it has to be um, in order to explain our orbiting and also spinning once daily around the sun. But consider this also. Um, Consider, going back to the whole thing of the plane, that when you fly and you leave a certain point, no matter which direction you fly in, after being in the air for a certain amount of time, um, you get to a certain distance, no matter which direction you're flying in. And consider the airline pilot, if they were trying to land a plane on a moving Earth that was rotating at 1,037 miles an hour, how many accidents, how many explosions, how many plane crashes there would be. There would be so many that pilots would be a rare commodity indeed, that they would probably not even survive their basic training to ever become airline pilots in the first place, or, you know, military pilots, pilots any of any craft. If they were, if even like just trying to land on an aircraft carrier, that's difficult enough. But if the Earth were moving at this grand speed, trying to land a plane, I mean, as soon as your wheels touch down, it would jerk you to the right and cause you to wreck. And so, um, that is further confirmation that the Earth is stationary, not moving. And it's the same kind of thing for people that get in hot air balloons that lift off the Earth. When they do so, the Earth isn't rotating quickly out from underneath them, but they remain directly above the place that they launched, and are only the only shift that occurs is due to the wind, and that they ride the trade winds, that the hot air balloons, they reach a certain height, and it's the wind that propels them in, whichever direction, and that's how they get to a particular place. But that the Earth isn't rotating at this great speed out from underneath it. Same thing for those of you that have jumped out of airplanes. um, the pilot never takes into consideration which direction he is flying in when people launch out of the back of the craft. And when, for those that like land in a particular football stadium, that come down, and these different army pilots, I mean, army parachutists, that jump down and come down during halftime or before football games. When they jump out of the airplane, the Earth isn't rotating quickly towards the east and moving away from them. It remains stationary, and when they jump, they aim towards the target, knowing that it's not going to deviate, and that they could, kind of guide themselves toward it to get to where they want to be. It's not rotating quickly to the east and in that way deviating in any manner. And it's the same thing that you see when you burn a fire, like when there's huge fires out in the west and the smoke rises. The smoke isn't streaming towards the west because of the earth moving towards the east. It rises in steady stream directly upwards towards the sky. And there's not any deviation or any shift beyond if it's windy and the wind is blowing the smoke in a certain direction. Otherwise, there's many days where the wind is so calm and so still that it won't even flutter your hair, and flags won't wave. There's it it's still and motionless. And on these kind of days, when you burn a fire, the smoke will rise directly upwards until it dissipates in the sky. And this is also further confirmation that the Earth is stationary and unmoving, and that what science says tells us and gives us as being the rotational speed of its orbit, its spin as it orbits around the sun, that this is fabricated. And the way that sundial works, well, actually, I'll get to that story here in just a second. And so, anyways, those things that all of us can witness and have seen and observed for ourselves, they tell us that the earth is unmoving, that it's stationary, and that there is no rotational speed to it. And there's been several scientific experiments. I'm not going to go into all of that, but there have been numerous that have been done by scientists where they were actually trying to prove that there was either curvature to the earth or that there was a rotational speed to the earth. And they found out the complete opposite, that there was no rotational speed and that the earth is in fact stationary. Now I'm reading some of the keeping up with some of the commentary in the chat room, and I'll try to answer that as well. But one other thing, as far as airline pilots or in flying, like military jet fighters, that if you're flying a plane and that if you're flying, it doesn't matter east, west, north, or south, and that there's curvature, and we're on a globe, and there's this curvature, then according to the way that the globe is structured, a pilot should always have to be facing his craft, the nose of his craft, downward in order to remain in alignment with the curvature of the earth. But this isn't, again, this is not the way that it is. In fact, in the airplane, in the cockpit, they have I forget what the gauge is. Maybe it's an altimeter, I'm not sure, but it shows you the horizon, and it keeps you level, and you have to remain constant at this level in order to reach your destination, and that the craft will maintain this trajectory. It will hold this level pattern of flight until it gets to its destination, and then the pilot will descend out of the skies and land the craft. And again, as I said, the earth is not moving, which an airline pilot landing a craft on a runway, that the runway is not deviating, isn't moving according to the rotation of the earth, that a pilot is able to land smoothly and not crash because the earth is stationary and unmoving. But as I said again, if the earth was curved, then pilots should have to point the nose of their craft down in order to remain level with the curvature of the earth. And if they did so, if you tried to fly in that kind of manner, you would basically crash into the plane of the earth. And so these things are also further confirmation that there's absolutely something to the earth being stationary and there being no measurable curvature. When we get back from the next break, I'll actually pull up you know the formula for measuring curvature, and it'll show you that it gets rather large, especially after a few miles. But again, you can see the Statue of Liberty or lighthouses from great distances, or the Manhattan skyline, or the Chicago skyline across Lake Michigan. That you can see these things at great distances, and according to the curvature of the earth, they should not be visible. They should be below the line of sight and beneath the horizon, so that you shouldn't even be able to see the tops of the buildings. But yet, this is, again, this is not the way that it is. All right, now, a couple stories from the Bible about the order of creation. In Genesis, it talks about that the earth was created first, and that the firmament of the earth was established above it. Even though the earth became null and void, in Genesis 1, verse 1 and verse 2, which I'll pull that up, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. It wasn't until day 3 that the seas and the land appeared, and all of these things were divided. And even though there is a firmament, the heavenly luminaries, the sun and the moon, they weren't placed into that firmament until day 4. So let's look at that again. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. The firmament, and God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So you have the earth, even though it's null and void, it's been destroyed in some manner. And you have the firmament being stretched out above it, which this also fits with the passage that so many people send to me when they try to confirm that the Bible supports a globe earth, the shape of the earth as being a globe. And that particular passage that I'm referring to is from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 22, where it says, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth. And everybody, a lot of my listeners sent that to me, saying that the circle of the earth is a globe. But I've proven and verified in not only my book, but many other shows, that the circle of the earth being described here is actually a round, circular, flat plane, as you see depicted in the United Nations flag as what's called an azimuthal equidistance projection map, and that this is the shape of the earth is like a disc, a round disc. All right, and so completing the passage, it says, "It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and it spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in." So if you picture a tent to dwell in, or a tabernacle, which here Isaiah says that this is the shape of the earth with the firmament spread out above it. The earth, the circle of the earth, is the floor of the tent, and that the walls and the roof, the curtain, the canopy, the dome, whatever you want to call it, that the heavens are spread out, and that they are the covering of this particular tent. And so this is the shape, the ancient Hebrew cosmology, and the shape of the visible universe has the earth as the foundation for the firmament which was spread out and established above it. And this again follows in line with the order of creation as it says in Genesis. Um, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 11, it continues, "And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass." Chapter verse 10, "And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas, and God saw that it was good." Now, I'm not going to read the rest of it. He establishes the trees and the herbs and all the things that ended up growing on the earth. But all of that was done on the third day, and the evening and the morning was the third day. And then you have the establishment and the creation of the sun and the moon. Beginning in verse 14, it says, "And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. All right, I'll pick up final segment. All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. As I was saying, about the order of creation, and that the sun was created on the fourth day and placed in the firmament above the earth, and that prior to that time, the heavenly luminaries hadn't been established. And so the earth, and how would it make sense if the earth is spinning around the sun? How would it make any kind of sense for it to be created first, and then, on the fourth day, then the sun is created and placed in the heavens, and then all of a sudden the earth is, in rotation around it? That doesn't make sense according to the order of creation, which, as I said, with Isaiah chapter 40, verse 22, the circle of the earth, that the ancient Hebraic universe, the cosmology, is it cites the earth as being the foundation for the heavens which were established above it. And so, going back to a couple things, because I do want to get to, the book of Enoch. I'm not going to be able to cover it in any great detail tonight, but I had to set the foundation for later discussion of it, and I'll help you to make sense of things that really have not been decrypted for over 500 years, because we've not opened ourselves to new possibility. Which, if you study the Bible, it tells you that the earth is immovable, stationary, fixed, and that being created as a foundation for the heavenly luminaries and the firmament which was spread above it, that the earth is much larger in proportion than either the sun or the moon. And so, and a couple other stories that will set up the whole thing that I'm going to go into as far as the book of Enoch. When you look at two stories from the scriptures, Joshua chapter 10, which talks about a time when Joshua was going to war with the giants in the land of Canaan, and the Most High gave him the power to make the sun and the sun and the moon to stand still. And how would that make any sense at all if the earth is spinning around the sun? Because the only way that the um, that the that the earth the sun would be prevented from going down is if Joshua was given the power and the authority to stop the earth. But that's not what it says. It says that he was given the authority to stop the sun and the moon, which, according to the book of Enoch, as well as other portions of the text, it's the sun and the moon which rotate in clockwise fashion above the circle of the earth, as described here in Isaiah chapter 40. And that Enoch spends, these 14 chapters in the book of the courses of the heavenly luminaries speaking about the motions of the sun and the moon, and 0 chapters on describing the motions of the earth. And the reason being is because the earth is stationary, and it's the sun and the moon which rotate in circle above it. Which, if you apply this worldview to the story of Joshua stopping the sun and the moon, then it makes sense that the Most High gave Joshua the power to stop the sun and the moon in their circuits above the earth, because stopping the sun and the moon prevented the sun from disappearing, reaching the vanishing point, and setting for the day. And so Joshua stopping the sun and the moon actually prevented the sun from going down and gave them the daylight that they needed in order to wipe out the rest of the giants living in Canaan land. Also notice that according to this story, there were no massive repercussions to the earth, as far as tsunamis or earthquakes or pole shifts or lightning activity or massive storms. There were no major repercussions. Nothing was said of this happening, of the sun and the moon standing still. Which, if the earth were actually spinning around the sun, and Joshua and the Most High gave Joshua the power to stop the earth and the moon, there would be huge repercussions. Talk about massive tsunamis, all that water just all of a sudden coming to a stop and just going out and flooding huge swaths of land. There would be major repercussions to the earth if something like that were to happen. Now, another story. If you look at the story, there's a story in Isaiah chapter 38 and also 2 Kings, I believe it's chapter 2 or chapter 10, where Hezekiah, knowing that he's about to die, he prays to the Most High to give him a reprieve. And the Most High sends Isaiah to him and tells him that he's going to forgive him and give him an extension of 15 years to his life. And he also tells him that in the, as far as he's going to give him a sign proving to him that he's going to perform this miracle and that he's going to perform this deed and actually give him forgiveness. And the sign, interesting enough, is the sun going backwards 10 degrees on a sundial, which, if you think about and you apply this story and our current worldview of the earth spinning in circle around the sun and spinning once daily, which is what creates a day, then in order for the Most High to accomplish this, he would have had to have stopped the earth, then moved it back 10 degrees in its circuit, and then allowed it to begin spinning again in its normal in its normal orientation. Which, if he did all of that in that short amount of time, I mean, can you imagine the repercussions just from Joshua being able to stop the earth and prevent the sun going down, those would have been huge implications to that. But the earth being stopped and then moved back 10 degrees and then allowed to begin its spin again, it's ludicrous to imagine um, even God being able to do something like that. Not that he couldn't do it, but the consequences to the people and the creatures of the earth would be such that there would be widespread devastation. And so, yeah, if you're asking about the book that I wrote, it's called The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch. And I'll be doing some more shows on it because, as I said, it's 32 chapters long. It covers all of the things that I'm speaking about here and so very much more. I've written about all of these things. All right, because I'm going to run out of time, I'm going to go ahead and go into how it is that this understanding, this revelation, applies to the book of Enoch. And I'm going to bring up a couple passages specifically. Enoch chapter 71, verse 8. As I said, the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries are found in chapter 70 through 83. And in verse 71:8, it says this: "The sun sets in heaven, and returning by the north to proceed towards the east is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven." And so, as I was, when I first began to read this and to study it, trying to apply this passage to a globe, even if you were to look down upon the globe, there's no way for, the sun to move in this manner. It just does not make sense. And even if it were to move in this manner, um, how does that apply to the earth being in orbit around it? You can't make sense of it at all. But if you pull up the United Nations map and you look at the azimuthal equidistance projection map, the circle of the earth as described by Isaiah, and you look at this circle with the North Pole in the center and the Antarctic uh, being the outside, these southern edges, the outer edges, then the center is the North Pole. The equator is the circle which cuts this particular circle of the Earth exactly in half. The Tropic of Cancer is a circle on the inside between the equator and the North Pole, and the Tropic of Capricorn would be the largest circle encompassing the outside between what would be the Antarctic ice wall, the southern edges of this disk, this circular circle of the Earth, and it would be between the edges and the equator. And so when you look at the circle of the Earth in that manner, and you apply the description that Enoch has here, the sun sets in heaven, and returning by the north to proceed towards the east is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven. What he's describing here is the movement of the sun in a circle above the earth, which is exactly what is described in Psalms 19 in the Bible. It says this of the movement of the sun above the earth. It says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where the voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. He going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. And so basically Enoch is saying here that it is the sun which moves above the earth, and um, not the earth which is moving around the sun, which again is the reason why Enoch spends so much time writing about the motions of the sun and the moon, and zero to describing the motion of the earth, because the earth is stationary and unmoving, and it's the sun and the moon which move above it, which he describes this also in a passage I'll read. He says, "And the days Uriel showed me, the angel whom the Lord of glory appointed over all the luminaries of heaven, and in the world, that they might rule in the face of the sky, and appearing over the earth, become conductors of the days and the nights, the sun, the moon, the stars, and all the ministers of heaven, which make their circuit with all the chariots of heaven." And so here he's saying that it's the sun, the moon, the stars, all of them move in the face of the sky and have circuits appearing over the earth, which is exactly why when Joshua was given the power to keep the sun from setting during that day, the Most High gave him power to make the sun and the moon stand still, because it's the sun and the moon moving above the earth which keeps the day from setting. Again, the same thing with the sundial. The sun was moved back 10 degrees in its rotation, in its circuit above the earth, and then allowed to continue in normal circular rotation above the sun, which is exactly the in describing the rest of the book of Enoch, I basically decrypted the motions of the sun and the moon. The portion which pertains to the sun, Enoch describes the 6 gates of heaven, which I'll read that, and then I'll explain how this pertains to the flat earth and how you need to understand the model of the world in this way in order to make any sense of what Enoch is describing. So verse 71:3, he says, "I beheld the gates whence the sun goes forth, and the gates where the sun sets, in which gates also the moon rises and sets. And I beheld the conductors of the stars. Among those who precede them, 6 gates were at the rising, and 6 at the setting of the sun. All these respectively, one after another, are on a level, and numerous windows are on the right and on the left sides of those gates. First proceeds forth that great luminary which is called the sun, the orb of which is as the orb of heaven, the whole of it being replete with splendid and flaming fire. Its chariot, where it ascends, the wind blows. The sun sets in heaven, and returning by the north," again, here's that circular description, "to proceed towards the east, is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven. In the same manner it goes forth in the first month by the great gate. It goes forth through the fourth of those 6 gates which are at the rising of the sun. And in the 4th gate, through which the sun with the moon proceeds, in the first part of it there are 12 open windows, from which issues out a flame when they are opened in their proper period." All right, just a little bit more, and then I'm going to explain this. "When the sun rises in heaven, it goes forth through this 4th gate 30 days, and by the 4th gate in the west of heaven on a level with it descends. During that period the day is lengthened from the day, and the night curtailed from the night for 30 days. And then the day is longer by 2 parts than the night. The day is precisely 10 parts, and the night is 8. All right, I'm going to explain this now. The description that Enoch gives of the motions of the sun, he begins with it being positioned directly above the equator on the day of the vernal equinox, which according to God's calendar is the first day of the year. It begins spring. So the vernal equinox, when the sun is above the equator for the day of the vernal equinox, this is the first day of spring. The gates of heaven are situated in this manner. There are 3 gates. The first, second, and third gate are below the equator and divide the area between the Tropic of Capricorn and the equator. The other 3 gates, the fourth, fifth, and sixth, are above the equator and are spread between the equator and the Tropic of Cancer. And so Enoch will describe the motion of the sun for 30 days. It will go through the fourth, fifth, and the sixth gate. It takes 30 days for the sun to go through each one of these gates. And so when the sun is positioned on the equator, the day is equally divided by 12 hours. Exactly. And then as it moves up into the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth gate, when it reaches the sixth gate, it will take 31 days to go through the sixth gate. And the reason being is because whenever the sun reaches the tropics, either the tropics, it takes 1 day for it to culminate its motion and then to begin moving in the other direction. And whenever it reaches the equator, it takes 1 extra day for it to cross the equator. And so as it's moving, the description that Enoch gives is it takes 30 days to go through the fourth gate, 30 days to go through the fifth gate, and 31 days to get to the sixth gate in the summer solstice, the Tropic of Cancer. And then it begins to move down again through the gates. It'll take 30 days to go to reach the fifth gate, descending through the sixth gate, 30 days to reach the fourth gate, descending through the fifth gate, and then it will reach the equator again for the autumnal equinox. And then it will take 30 days to descend through the third gate, 30 days to descend through the second gate, and 31 days to reach the Tropic of Capricorn. And that's the winter solstice. And then it will reverse course, take 30 days to climb through the first gate, 30 days to climb through the second gate, and 30 days to climb through the third gate. And then it will reach again the equator for the vernal equinox, completing a full cycle of the sun's motion through these 6 gates of heaven. Also know that I'm almost done with the video that I did. I did 4 shows on my other podcast, on my other radio program at blogtalkradio.com/Fallen Angels TV. I'm creating a video which depicts the motions. It aligns the scripture and the motions of the sun's movement through these 6 gates, and I'm almost done with it. It's an hour and a half long. I'm going to post it to the internet probably within 1 or 2 days. And when you watch this video, you'll understand exactly what I'm speaking about, because I did this same portion of this show. I've read several chapters of the book of Enoch, and I described the sun's motion through these gates of heaven. And I'll be posting that on the internet, and I'll provide you the link very soon. And when you watch it, you'll understand completely what I'm speaking about and what I detail and write about in my latest book. This is my 9th book. It's called The Flat Earth as Key